Give me one moment here. All right. Thank you again, Joel, for this. Like you said, we're going to be talking a lot about kind of SEO and socializing content, and kind of what that means to you and your organization, and how you can use it to leverage to get a better presence out there on the web. Um, so, oops. Let me start a little bit again. Joel, as Joel said, my name is Virgil Carroll. I'm the owner and principal human solutions architect at High Monkey. I actually originally hail from the great state of Alaska, but have been living in the Midwest for the last 22, almost 22 years. Um, Everything that I do is always going to be around user experience and about how to make things better, and including some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today. Um, I've been developing websites since 1998 and been doing SharePoint since 2001, which kind of fits both sides of our practices. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about what SEO is, and even though we're kind of talking about a much more broader spectrum overall, this kind of brings into perspective what a lot of what we're going to talk about today. SEO is really search engine optimization. It's kind of been a phrase that has been utilized for a really long time across the web, and it really is about how the visibility of your website or web page in a web search engine's unpaid results. That was kind of the original thing on there. I think the important thing is that SEO has very much expanded from that, and it's very different than what it was 20 some odd years ago, when it really started to become a phrase and a kind of a practice that we started understanding. But one of the biggest things is it's something that constantly changes. And it's something that is constantly out there. But really, SEO is about how people find you when they don't know your web address or they don't know some particular piece of content that you've offered, but how do they really get out there in that? So, um, what is SEO not? Well, I think one of the things we really have to establish right here is it's not magic. Um, uh, uh, Years ago, when I first started getting into the web, one of the things that was about SEO was you had these providers that did this search engine optimization, and you paid them money, and they say they get you to be the number one search results, and you'd have all these different things, and where maybe back then there were some really manipulative ways that you could do that kind of stuff. Today, it's just not the same. SEO is really a lot different than that now, and really is kind of general practices that we can do to really make something happen. But what you always have to be careful about is if you're talking to an organization, they're saying, oh, we're going to increase your relevance tenfold, or we're going to do something kind of spectacular about your organization with search engine optimization. You always want to kind of question that in there. But the second part is it's not a silver bullet. Search engine optimization is a tool in your toolbox when you talk about your digital presence and how you really kind of manage your digital experience with your organization and with your customers or internal stakeholders or whoever it might be that you might be working with in that. And the last thing that SEO is not, is it's not just about Google. And even though today, even a lot of the examples I'm going to go through are very Google centric, overall, you've got to kind of take this to the next level and say that, this is really about how you interact with people in the digital world. And SEO is really about good practices. And so, why do we need it? Well, the good news is that one of the things that's really happened over the last quite a few years is that good kind of search engine optimization practices also has a great effect on improved user experience and usability. So the way we structure pages, the way we have semantical relationships around our information and all that kind of stuff has really kind of come into not only affect kind of how search engines and different social platforms and that understand our content, but also on top of that, it also makes it easier for people to be able to digest because things are in more consistent formats and have follow a more standard practice in that. It also helps with your brand awareness. If you're an organization that's really out there trying to make sure that people kind of understand who you are, but also want some modicum of control around that and kind of how you're getting it out. A lot of these practices really kind of help you in helping things. Some of the things we'll look at today are going to be things around like uh, when people share information from your website, to Facebook or to Pinterest or to Twitter or something along that lines, how that kind of gets represented and how you can kind of help affect that representation, which overall helps. Um, and the thing is, it really, doing some type of search engine optimization, understanding the practices that really comes in there, it can really help you when you do it, but it hurts you when you don't. And the reason it hurts you when you don't is because there's probably somebody out there that you compete as that is doing it, that is getting that more traction, that is getting that better understanding of their brand and what's happening in that. So you always have to kind of understand that, and you always have to kind of look at that from the standpoint of really kind of taking it and making sure that you're doing something. And one of the best parts is it's trackable. It's something kind of tangible. A lot of times, business owners have a really hard time um, uh, kind of understanding the value of doing some of this stuff. And the good news is there's a lot of trackability around this stuff to really kind of help you. So I'm going to just go through a few slides where I want to kind of talk about some basics about this stuff, and kind of how it works. And then I'm really going to switch into actually going through and getting into my browser and actually walking through some things that we can look at, and some things that you can do on your side, from that side. So what are some things that you need to do really to get started? Well, first is create valuable content. I can't stress this enough that you really do have a lot of opportunity here, to really kind of make some positive changes in that. And it's not just about having good content, or having lots of keywords and content and everything like that. It really is this kind of overall pattern that search engines like Google and Bing and social networks and that they really look at the value of your content, otherwise how it is. And you can see some of the keys that are really being done. One is keyword usage. If you're using the keywords that you really want people to find you in, and you're using it throughout your content. But it's very important to understand one of the big things about that is using those keywords in a natural sense. Otherwise, anybody that remembers 20 years ago, one of the tricks of the SEO trade used to be to say even have hidden fields where you had the keyword over and over and over, so that when the search engine crawled it, it was like, oh, this is really big around this topic, in that. But today what it is it looks for natural language patterns and that kind of stuff. The lengthier content, obviously the longer the content, the more relevant it tends to be around a topic. But that also goes with the comprehensive. Is it a good written topic in that? Do you have things that actually go along with that? There's a lot of tools that are out there that can kind of help you, but one that I've actually used a few times that I've actually liked, and I'm actually going to break from the slide presentation here real quick and actually go to it. Sorry. And let me load it up. And there's a lot of different ones out here, but this is one you can see. I actually ran this on highmonkey.com back on February 27th. But WooRank, I kind of liked it because it had a few kind of a little bit more advanced features to it. Plus, it didn't feel quite so like, improve this, improve that, and that. It kind of gives you a lot of recommendations. But what you can see is that you have a lot of things that you can affect from a content side, from down there. So you can see that it looks at everything from, how your title tags to your metadata descriptions, how you use heading tags inside your pages and that. What type of keywords do you use inside there, and what do those keywords represent? Are you doing things like having alt tags for your images? What kind of links you have, and this is really going to go back to some of the other slides that I'm going to go to, from that side. But you can see there's a lot of information here. Now I'm on the free trial again because I stopped using it a while back. But if I was to actually go through and use it, you would actually see a much more, and you could dig into these different areas and kind of understand this. But one of the things I liked about this, and you can see back in February we were kind of knocked down on mobile speed, from browser caching and some of the things there. But it gives you a lot of information here that kind of lets you know how well you're doing from kind of a content side and from kind of an overall strategy side, from that side. Yes, there's a lot of things like it's telling me, hey, should I buy all these domains? Something that probably is very senseless to me. But overall, you have a lot of different things that you can do with that. And so it really kind of goes to that first piece, which is around your content and really kind of understanding the value of it. There's a lot of others. I also use a product from a company called Screaming Frog that is a crawler in itself. And one of the things I like about that crawler is not only can I create a site map of my site, but also on top of that, I'm able to actually look at how things like how it would work as a mobile crawler and how it would work as a desktop crawler and how it would look to a search engine and that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of different power from that. But overall, you need to understand that the first and foremost, content is king. And so if you don't have good content, then kind of the rest of this is really senseless, because no matter how much you do effort, people aren't uh, the search engines aren't going to rank it high, and people aren't going to search it, and then people aren't going to share that content out in their social networks. So the second thing you can do is, that has become a really big push over the last 4 or 5 years, especially in the world of kind of the strength of content, and that is actually making sure that your website works good on the web. Otherwise, really, this is more technical practices, more things that you should be looking at in there. One of the first things is making your website secure. Google especially is starting to knock down sites that do not use secure protocols, especially if you're going through Google Chrome, their browser, which is pretty much the most prevalent browser out there in usage, and you're actually getting to a very strong alert that shows that it's not secure in that. But when you download the slides later, you can actually get links to these accesses. This is a little bit about making it secure and what that means. But overall, what they're saying is that sites that have actually taken, and organizations that have actually taken that step of actually trying to make their sites more secure and more functional and safer, it's going to give them that leg up. The other thing is a couple other things that you can look at is page speed and mobile friendliness. I'm going to look at that here real quick. And then accessibility. So like I said, good page structure can really have an effect on how search engines rank your site and how kind of it's understood in social context and that kind of stuff. But that's actually what I'm going to talk about in the next webinar, so I'm not going to go through there. But a couple of things that are getting to be very key here. First is page speed in that. So again, this actually not only just from just a standard, how people use your site and having kind of good practices, but on top of that, you also have the benefit that the better performing the site, the better the site is kind of optimized, especially for mobile. The higher organizations like Google will actually give you a ranking because they say that this is a good quality site that people can go through, that has good quality content and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different tools to kind of look into this, but Google has a free tool called Pagespeed Insights. It's really simple. You just enter in the URL you want to test, you hit analyze, and then it runs through a bunch of processes where you can kind of see it. So you can see right now that I'm getting a really good score on my desktop of Kentico User Group, which is a user group for a CMS platform that we run. And then I'm not getting as good of score on the mobile side, so there's some work there. And then you're just going to see some simple kind of recommendations on what you might be able to do around that from that side. The same as they also have another tool called mobile friendly test. So again, this is something that they actually score you on when a crawler goes through, and it actually kind of measures how mobile friendly your site is. So you can see that this page that I looked at, just kentcodeusergroup.org, is mobile friendly. So it goes through there, and then you see that it actually gives a quick rendering. But these are just some quick, very simple tools that you can run on your pages just to kind of know, are these kind of doing what you're supposed to be doing? Are they kind of meeting the needs there that you do? And this is where you can start to look at it, because this is one thing that, a lot of times you can look at, like minifying your cascading style sheets and that kind of stuff, and some of the things that you can do here to kind of make a positive step in the right direction from that side. So again, kind of summing that up, a lot of this stuff that you can do is kind of from a technical standpoint, and that you can do that. And if you're a marketer, you have a little bit harder having time having control over that. But overall, you should be working with whoever your web team is and making sure that your pages are optimized for all kinds of different occurrences, and kind of. But more importantly, as you're going through the process, kind of make sure that you're testing on a regular basis to kind of make sure that they're hitting these things. Um, the other one that you can do is, kind of optimize your presence on the web. So there's still things, and still the most relevant thing that possibly affects, especially from a search engine relevance side, is backlinks. And so what backlinks basically means is uh, how much other sites actually have links to your content and your information on on their site. And so one of the common things, again, this was about, years ago, we used to have this whole concept called link sharing. I put a link about your site on my site, and you put one about me. There was that kind of stuff. And there's still some value to that stuff. And a lot of the software out there that will kind of market backlinks is they'll like go through some kind of algorithmic crawl, and they'll look and they'll say, hey, you should contact this site, or we'll contact this site on your behalf. But in the end, really where this really comes to, and a lot of what we're going to talk about kind of the rest of this session, is about kind of getting things shared out, and really how you do that, is it's more valuable to have it to specific content. Otherwise, you have a good blog post, you have a reference, you have a white paper, you have something like that where people can actually get to, and other people have shared that out. So backlinks are no longer just about from websites, they're about from social media accounts, there's from all those different things in that, which goes to the other side. So you can have a lot of links, but there's also a part of that that's this link relevance. Otherwise, they'll look at the page and they'll actually look at, is this relevant to this page? Is this actually a good topic in here? And is it a well-written topic? It goes back to your content. Is this a well-written topic in that? So the thing you really have to understand is that none of these pieces just fit in and of itself. They all kind of work in an integrated format in there. And so when you start getting links from a lot of other sites and a lot of other social media accounts, it helps you. If it's just spam and that kind of stuff, it's not going to. So you need to create a better understanding of your content. And so that's this is kind of what we're going to spend a good chunk of the rest of the time going through after I have one more slide, is kind of about social isn't just about likes. There's a lot that you can do to kind of help not only make especially digital channels kind of understand your content better, but also have a little bit more control over that process as well. And then the last thing that I want to kind of indicate before I kind of go through there is the keys, in that of you need to start at the beginning. This needs to be part of your entire content conversation. So if you've already got a large website and you've already got a lot of content out there, it's not too late, but you really do have to look at what you have to go back and refresh, and kind of some of the things that you need to do around there, because most of the time, most organizations don't have a very mature practice around this side of the equation, and kind of what they're doing, and kind of how that's going to help them. And so again, when you start looking at the keywords, a lot of times people will start with their homepage and start doing something there. You start looking at that, that's really great, but at the same time, you need to kind of understand the context. Since we work with a lot of government, one of the things we know from a government standpoint is not very often do people actually enter in via homepage. They tend to be looking on a particular topic and then going to that topic page based on some type of Google search in that. So you need to kind of understand those patterns and practices that people use actually to get to your content in the first place. But you really need to have this be an integrate part of your entire process in how you do things. All right, so I'm going to just walk through these next few slides really quickly, but I just want to kind of let you know, and I provided this just so that if you wanted to take a look, we're going to actually be looking at these two pages that I have some of the context that I want to use in our discussion today. So these are just the links that if you do the view source, sorry, this is in Google Chrome, you'll be able to look at the source behind the scenes. We're going to be looking at a few things. One, we're going to take a look at Google Search Console. Console, and we're going to kind of take a little walk through that and some of the things that can really help you do from that side. We're going to look at Schema.org, and Schema.org is really one of the two kind of major methods in which you can kind of help influence and help search engines, help social media channels, and that really understand your content and have better context about that. Schema.org can be used by a lot of different things, but probably the two most popular is going to be Google and how it does its structured data, and then also Pinterest uses Schema.org as well in that. So we're going to kind of take a quick look at that. And then the other protocol is Open Graph. This was actually created by Facebook a number of years ago. Open Graph is another set of tags that kind of lets you kind of define more specifically your content. And we're going to kind of show how that's used by Facebook and how it's used by Twitter from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of switch over here to my Search Console. If you've never used Google Search Console, I really recommend doing this. A lot of times, a lot of organizations tend to try to gain understanding around their search practices around Google Analytics, and it does obviously give some decent information about kind of how you can actually see your search engine stuff and how you can kind of go through there. But overall, if you really want to get serious about kind of having a deeper understanding of what gets searched and how Google kind of understands your website and what's working, what isn't, it's really kind of important that you start looking at something like Google Search Console. I've left a link in there to it, but it's just google.com webmasters tools, and that once you do that, you actually add in then your website that you want to crawl. You can see that www.highmonkey.com, and you can see here on the dashboard I just have some very simple things in that. And so there's a few things that I want to kind of focus in on that can really kind of help you. First is, just like you do on Google Analytics, but a little bit more specific, you start getting into kind of the analytics that you have here from that side. You can see that I can start seeing, I actually had never switched this over because we used to be a non-secure site and now we're a secure site. So our clicks are kind of spread out across a lot of things. And I've just been starting to consolidate that. But you can see right here that you can kind of see the queries that are happening here. Ironically, project manager of ours, a number of years ago wrote a post on using OneNote for Kanban boards, which is a type of kind of project management kind of management process, and still today it is actually one of the most frequently used or viewed blog posts on our website, which you can see now here when you actually look at that, how much people are actually doing that, and that actually our name and you know kind of the things that we actually do are much further down there. But you can see that you can kind of look at it by queries. You can see the pages people are visiting, much like you can. You can see again that Kanban board has doing it, but you can see kind of other things from that side. And that I do want to mention that these dates are actually just the last 3 days. So if you're looking going, hey, nobody goes to HighMonkey, that's true. Well, over the last 3 days, we've only had a few visits from that side. But overall, you can kind of see and you can kind of understand what's being shared and what's not being shared in that. And then you have a lot of other things like looking at links to your site, which I don't think is actually crawled on this. Yes, it's no data available because that happens after 30 days. But you can see that kind of stuff. But another thing you can understand, and this is going to go specifically to the structured data that we discussed before, is you can actually see you know, kind of how they're done. So like I said, one of the things I'm going to show you is schema.org, and you'll see that I actually have quite a bit of stuff actually set up with schema.org tags to actually understand. So you can see a blog post. I have 119 blog posts out there that have been tagged with schema.org. I have some site navigation elements, website and organization. I'm going to go through all this and kind of help walk you through it just a bit. But overall from here, what you can kind of understand is that Google is understanding these things, that these are unique, that there's more information there than just content on a page. So Google can actually understand this information better, which can be very, very important from that side. There's obviously a lot of different things you can look at. You can look at index, you can look at how the crawling is. One of the things I like to do is like looking at crawl errors. So you can start finding pages that are getting crawled that actually return. So a 404 response is some kind of negative response. You can see that we have 3 things we've been working on kind of getting rid of these. But sometimes in old blog posts, sometimes those hit there where you have that kind of stuff. And then you can see actually that you can actually see the URLs from the desktop to the smartphone and how that works. And so overall, really when you start doing this stuff, using Google Search Console can kind of help you get started and really kind of be your overall guidance from that side. And then you kind of go from there. You can go into what is the specific tagging structures here. Now, I'm hoping that I'm not going to get to too complex of a level, but I wanted to make sure that I kind of walk through this. Schema.org is kind of a community thing that is basically about providing metadata, providing semantical information, or schemas, as we like to call them, around structured data. Otherwise, there are hundreds and hundreds of schemas that go through here. Everything from how we define a product, to a person, to an organization, to a book, to everything else in there. In that, so what we can really do from that side is we really can kind of understand kind of the makeup. So I'm going to just go into one of these real quick, and you can see that there's all these different kinds of attributes or properties that you can add to this to kind of define that. What's that mean to us? Well, search engines like Google and Bing and all those kind of stuff, and some of the organizations like Pinterest and that have kind of taken this to another step and have kind of said, hey, we'd like to be able to utilize this and kind of understand so that we can do things from that side. So what's that mean? Well, if I search on HiMonkey and I pull that up, a lot of this controls not only kind of what is up as your main search engine result there, but also how these side panels, these kind of featured side panels come up and all the information inside there, and then kind of everything in between on that, so that you're able to kind of look at that in there. So what it really gives you is kind of a really good opportunity to kind of see more information and kind of understand that and actually control what these search engines understand about your business, and not only just going and creating the profile, but doing some of the things from that side. So from a schema.org thing, I'm going to go ahead and go to my home page. The first one I want to look at, and I'm actually going to right click and I'm going to go to my page source. This is going to get, again, a little bit to code, but overall I'm going to try and walk through it on a very high level and kind of help you understand some of this stuff. But you'll notice 2 things that are part of this. One are the OG tags, which are going to be the open graph tags that kind of define it for an open graph standpoint. And then the other in this is really what I would call gobbledygook, is the schema.org tags, and you go, oh my god, that's a lot of information and that looks like a lot of coding. Well, you're correct. There actually is a way to do this inside the HTML of your page as well, but overall Google really recommends that you do this as what their particular type of script that they like you to do to be able to do this kind of stuff in that. The good news is, even if you're not a developer, there's actually some good tools out there to kind of help you build this from that standpoint. And so the first one, and probably the one you're going to use most frequently, is you're going to use Google's structured data testing tool in that. And so I'm going to go ahead and run the test here. And basically what this does is it doesn't only let you kind of test current pages to kind of see what comes back, but it also gives you the opportunity doing, if you saw this new test here, you saw you could do a code snippet, you could actually start to build this. So this is actually the tool that oftentimes I use to actually build my schema.org tags and that. And so what you can see here is I've done this for the main website page, HiMonkey highmonkey.com, so our default page here, and you can see that it's actually detected some different things that I have here. It looks like I have an organizational element, and you can see that from that standpoint, a very good practice on your homepage is to create an organizational element. You can see there's our, this type is organization, our legal name is HighMonkey, here's our URL, there's the link to our logo. What this really helps is you see this same as right here. This is actually very helpful from the standpoint of helping Google actually understand that, hey, guess what? That Facebook account is also owned by HighMonkey. That Twitter account is also owned by HighMonkey. Pinterest is also HighMonkey. I see that I actually need to update our Instagram account. And what that really helps is as that content is being crawled through other mechanisms by Google, and it understands that it's getting something from our Pinterest channel or our Twitter feed or whatever like that, that it actually understands that we have some ownership across there, and that. And so on top of that, you can see we have like the contact point. So we have our telephone number, our email address, where our location is, so our postal address, where we're actually located and all that. And so that kind of rightfully defines our organization. What's that do from that side? Well, that's going to help influence exactly what's up here. You can even start taking it to extents much further down the road. But overall, what this is really doing is it's really helping the search engines that really kind of understand what you are. You can see also another common one is a website, where you're kind of defining your website, and you can see it here. And so one of the cool things is, and I'm going to just show you, I actually think if I type on Glassdoor, I think I might get this right here. You'll see right here this kind of panel up here where you have the kind of the sublinks here, and then you actually have a search box from that. That is actually controlled by this piece right here, where you're actually, well, this piece and the next piece, where you're actually defining your website and you're actually defining your site elements. The one thing that I have found that as you kind of use this, this really only works for sites that have a lot of traffic and that Google kind of gives from that. But no matter what, it's important. So from here, you're talking about where we're at, how you'd actually perform a search. That's what's going to influence this search box right here, to how you would perform a search on a Android, because it actually has a little bit different thing in how you would do the search term. The other side is you see you have these site navigational elements, and you can see like there's our home page, there's our About Us page, our work page, our expertise in that. And if you went back to our website, you'd see that those are our main navigation pieces here that exist there. And what you kind of really do is you allow Google then to have that higher level of understanding from that side. So now if I type, HighMonkey, I get a little bit more. You can see it's decided to choose this here, but then also you can see that when I actually go in here, you can see that it actually is very much taking the influence from those different pieces to have that kind of influence on what we're doing on that kind of stuff. And so it's really important from that side. From there, I'm not going to really walk through how to build this. As you can see, there is a lot of information here. But one thing is, once you start to piece it up, if you want to actually kind of walk through mine, you can actually click on the different components here, and you'll see that it's going to actually highlight over here exactly what that is. So you can kind of use HighMonkey as a model to start doing your own thing from that side. But you can actually take that even further, and you can go on top of that, and you can do, I'm going to grab my other link here. Sorry, I need to grab this one here. You can actually take this, and this doesn't only have to be about your entire website, but this can be about specific content itself. And so here's the crash course, the blog that we're doing. And so now you can see that I actually have another one that is called blog posting. Why they call it blog posting versus blog post, I'll never know. But this one really, from here, you can start to understand all the things. So now you have the headline of it, what date it was published. You can kind of do that. What type of blog post is it? It's sitting on a web page. What type of image is associated with it? Who's the publisher of this? Who's the author of this? And that kind of stuff. And again, what this really allows is it allows Google to have a better understanding. So as your content actually gets more relevant, it may display it differently. It has a better understanding of that content from that side. But it doesn't just stop there. That actually also goes into Pinterest. And so Pinterest actually use those as well. So if we go ahead and look at this, and you can see that we can use both Open Graph or Schema.org formats for Pinterest, and you have rich pins. And again, the link to that I'm going to provide in my PowerPoint so that you'll have that as well. But there's a rich pin validator, which is their rich pins that they do from that side. And once you kind of see that, you can actually see again kind of from their side what it's doing, and you can see that it's picked up the name, it's picked up the published date, the author description from that side in there. And then you can actually look at that once this has been submitted. So this actually allows you to submit it. You can actually look inside there, and you can actually see some of your rich pins that have been done across your organization. So again, no surprise, our one note Kanban board is super popular, and you can see kind of all the different variations that people have of this. But you can also see how we've been able to kind of control some of this from that side, from our rich pin standpoint. Then you go to the other side. So if I look here and I go to my blog post, and again, I go here, we had talked about these other tags that actually happen here, these OG tags that you see that are for Open Graph. This is a much more simple, so schema.org really lets us kind of take things at a very high kind of granular level. We can do a lot of different things here. Open Graph is much simpler here. So you can see like the title, I have a type here, which is a blog post. I have the URL where the blog post is, a description. I have an image that goes along with it, and then I have the site name. And so basically what the site name is if it's like in a particularly large scope on that side. And Open Graph specifically, and most importantly, is utilized by Facebook as its inventor. And so again, I'll have the link in here, but here's where you can kind of test it and make sure that your pages are kind of fitting there. But you can see right here, the shared debugger, you can see here. So I'm going to go ahead and scrape this again. And you can see that it's coming back. Okay, it came back there. Here's how it would preview. So this is where this starts getting very important, because now if somebody shares that blog post or that page, you can specifically control how that's shared and what actually is viewable from Facebook. So you can put the correct image, the correct description, and all that kind of stuff in there. And then you can kind of see the tags that go along with there in there, and you can see that you can add alt text and everything else like that from that side. And that basically goes to the same thing, which is Twitter. And you can look at the same type of stuff there with Twitter, so you can kind of understand this from that side. Twitter is definitely a lot more basic in that you really can't really tell. But again, if somebody was to share a link across there, you can start to do this. So what's this kind of all mean to you? Well, what this really means to you from that side is you're really able to kind of take these things and you're able to kind of do something with that in there. So kind of going back to our slides and what we kind of talked about there, in utilizing these things, you're really able to better define your content, not only inside the content in yourself, but kind of the metadata that surrounds it, so that people can really have an understanding, and that search engines, social channels, and all that can really have an understanding of what this content is, what it really means, and how valuable it is to the people that might visit it. But even on top of that, and I think more importantly, is one of the things that we know to be very true is that social media can kind of take a kind of direction of its own, and one that you might not expect. You might post something out that think is very benign topic, and it could be misconstrued, and it could be taken out of context, and it could go crazy and go viral in a very quick way. So one of the other things is using these tags, and that is you kind of have the ability to somewhat control that message, because somebody's going to control it by copying and pasting the URL. Well, once they do that, you're able to somewhat control kind of the visually what happens. So what image goes along with it, what description goes along with it, what title, and that kind of stuff. It doesn't mean if you accidentally post something really bad and you didn't mean to do that, that's not going to still have some negative consequences on your organization. But overall, you're able to better kind of control how your brand is kind of put out there and what it means from that side. So as I said, I will have a lot of the links to this different stuff. You can see here they're all here listed, so you'll be able to kind of gain access to those from that side. So you'll be able to do that in there. So in summary, just kind of going through this and kind of ending around there, the real opportunity you have here from the social side is you can really do a lot. And the whole point is there is no kind of one answer. It really is, if you're going to kind of do this and really try to kind of take the way you kind of manage across digital channels up to the next level, you have a lot of different things you can do. But there are some basic places you can start. Obviously your content needs to be really good. Your page, the way your pages render inside a browser and the people's experience with that are getting to be very, very critical. And again, if you like this session, I really do encourage the next one, because talking about accessibility not only helps people with visual impairments and other impairments that it does it, but it also has the side effect of also creating just a better experience for kind of overall users. And then you talk about from the social side, so using things like Schema.org and OpenGraph and really kind of helping define your content from there. A good example of that is if you've ever been on a site that or you've seen recipes on Pinterest, there's actually a Schema.org format for recipes, so that you can kind of correctly identify and notify, do recipes from that side and there. So another very common one in that. And then lastly, make sure that this is a very integrated part of your processes, that you're kind of looking at this from all walks of life. So right here, what I've done when I actually put these slides up, I recommend that you download them. They'll have the links to the various components there. I've given you the sample pages so that you can kind of have a place to start and actually look through our pages from that side. So thank you all very much. It looks like that took about 45 minutes, which is about perfect for this. I'll open it up for questions, and we'll stay on for about 5 minutes for any questions people have. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day.